Welcome to episode 20 of live.withcode.uk. A big welcome to any new schools who are getting involved in the weekly competitions. Remember, you can sign up for free, your teacher can track your progress, and you can compete with other students. And a big well done to Liv, who's this week's overall competition winner. This week, we are going to do an anti-bullying week themed activity. So the Python code that we're going to work on will load some image data from a file, so a two-dimensional array of the red, green and blue pixel data. We can generate that from a file to create some odd socks. So the idea is that this Monday we've been encouraged to wear odd socks to celebrate the fact that everybody is different, and we shouldn't mock each other for standing out. We should celebrate the fact that we're all different to each other. So in Python code, we're going to change the colors of each pixel and display some odd socks. Okay, so let's get started. With a blank canvas. It's live coding, so you'll see all the mistakes. The idea of this video is that you can watch the Python program come together from start to finish, and then you'll see some free learning activities in the description to this video or on live.withcode.uk. Or if you signed up for the competition, you can see all the links to get points on compete.withcode.uk. Okay, so first things first, let's get a sock image. You can get any picture. If you go to this link, there'll be a link to this in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Choose your image, drag and drop it or find it. I've just got a generic picture of some socks. And then we can change some settings. We can't go for an image bigger than 32 by 32, otherwise we'll just have too much data to cope with. You want it to be RGB, as in all of the pixels we need to store red, green and blue, a value for each of those lights to generate any color. So once we've got 32 pixels going across, 32 pixels going down, and for each pixel we store the red, green and blue amount, we can get some Python code. Now this looks horrendous, but don't worry too much about it at the moment. Let's just copy it and plop it into here. What's going on? If we run this, we should see a sock. Now it's not animated yet. We're going to do that in code in a minute, but let's explain what's going on here. So this is actually a three-dimensional array. We've got pixels going across, we've got pixels going down, and for each pixel we have a list of three numbers, so red, green and blue. Each of those numbers are the amount of light, so if we switch all the lights off, that means that we're going to turn the lights off for that pixel. And if we turn all the lights on, as in the amount of red is the first number, so that should go red, and the amount of green for the next number, so red and green together is yellow, you can just about see that. Red, green and blue together is white. Now, if I keep all of this code in the program, when you do the activity to type out all the code, you're going to be really annoyed with me, even more so than normal. So we're actually going to get all of this. So this makes a variable called data and stores all of this pixel data into that array. I'm going to cut it with Control X, make a new file and call it imagedata.py and plop it in there instead. And then instead of calling it data, I'm just going to call it sock. So if I try and run the code now, it says it doesn't know what data is. That's because we called it sock instead. But it still doesn't know what sock in. Doesn't know what sock is because we've defined it in a different program. So if we want to get it from a different program, we can say import image data. And we could, if we wanted to, do now image data.sock. That should hopefully work, but it's a bit long-winded. Instead, we're going to say from image data import sock, and then we can just use sock on its own without referring to the module that it's in, the file that it's in. Okay. We're also going to import time so that we can do time.sleep to pause the program. And we'll display a little welcome message. So anti-bullying week, happy odd socks day. It's a strange greeting, but there you go. So we've got our message, we've got our image. What I'd like to be able to do is iterate through every pixel and then change the color. So to do that, we're going to need iteration. So iteration just means looping through each value in a data structure, and we've got this data structure containing lots and lots of pixel data. So we are going to loop through every y coordinate. So for y in range, and remember our image just had 32, where's it gone? Change the settings. 32 pixels across, 32 pixels up. Where are we? So for y in that range, so y is just going to be from 0 up to 31. Instead of printing that, I now want to nest another iterative loop, so another for loop inside here. So for every y value, we're also going to iterate through every x value. So for x in range 32, that means we're going to repeat that 32 times. This line here is going to be repeated 32 times 32 times, as in for every single pixel. Right, what we're going to do, I'd like to swap the pixel colors around. So how should we do that? Well, remember we've got red, green and blue for every pixel. So I'm going to make a variable called R, another one called green, another one called blue, but I'm just going to shorten them to RGB, and get them from sock at that coordinate. So work out which row I'm interested in. So y comes first, that's like y is 0, and then y is 1, the next one, and then y is 2. And once we've got the y, we can use x as well to get the position across. That will get us the red, green and blue values. So red, green and blue. And I'm just going to swap them around. So now let's change the sock colours. But instead of having RGB, we'll put them in a different order. So I'm going to do G, B and R. So hopefully this time we run it, we've got different colours. So all we need to do now is just put all of this code in a loop. So let's say while true, so it repeats forever. True is just a Boolean value. So while will keep repeating while this is true. You can have something like while hungry is true, keep eating, but while true will just repeat forever. So this will work, and it will kind of display lots of stuff and look horrible, possibly even crash the browser. No, thankfully not. I don't want to make a new image each time. I want that to be out of the loop. So we do that first, but then we draw the image lots of times. So it's kind of flickering and looking weird. So let's slow it down. So we draw it, and then we can do time.sleep 1 second. So hopefully every second you're going to get some odd socks, and it will kind of loop through each combination of RGB and then blue, red, green, and then keep swapping around. So let's have some challenges that you can work on, and you'll have a link to all of this code in the description, and then also on live.withcode.uk there's the type racing activity, the keywords activity, and the kpride activity where you get points for spotting iteration, spotting variables, all of that kind of stuff. So let's see what your challenges are. Number 1, use a different picture. So use your own picture instead of the sock picture. Use this tool. I should probably put a link to that on here in case I forget. Let's have a look. So let's just plop that up here. Image data generated from. There we go. And then what could you do? Speed up the animation. You'll be used to talking about frames per second. If you're playing a game, you want the fastest frames per second to make it look nice and smooth. Just change this value. Instead of an integer, make it a real or a float value, a smaller value, so that it pauses for less time between each frame and it looks a bit smoother. Or number 3, draw 2 socks on the screen at the same time. Now remember, when this was in the loop, we had loads of images displayed. So if you want to have multiple images, you need multiple images created so that you can draw on separate image objects. It's a bit of a harder one to play around with. All the very best. Remember to access these via compete.withcode.uk if you want to get the points so that Liv doesn't win again next week. All the very best. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Bye-bye.